Yeah, we're on camera. So Earl and Judy Stanford, thank you for coming today. And Tara Kaylin, you know me as Rusty McClellan. Some people know me as Rusty McClellan. And we were just
You've always been Rusty.
yeah,
We're gonna call him Rusty today.
yeah, we were just talking about that. I go, when someone's like my wife will say, somebody says Rusty, oh, they knew you in high school, or they knew you in, you know, and so it's kind of funny. But you guys have had an amazing journey together. You shared just before we started that you've just finished 56 years together.
Right.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And so this is called Small Towns Unscripted. It's just a podcast we're going to share with other people, and hopefully this opportunity gives everyone a chance to get to know you guys better, and your wisdom and your knowledge and your opinions and your reflection of your life, because you guys have lived here, and
hopefully some wisdom will show up.
I love it. So anyway, thank you. Where do we start, Tara?
Is this one going to be tough for you?
It depends on my brain. Like when I think about him and my dad, sometimes I'm going to get a little emotional. So I'm going to it's like instinctual. I didn't expect that.
Because I would struggle.
Because of that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm a big crier.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mean a lot to me. I mean, you both.
Well, I've been with his mom and dad for forever.
How old are you?
I'm 90.
I mean, that is.
But that's nothing I'm ashamed of.
No, it's
a
awesome.
blessing.
You're either 20 or you're 90, but you are what you are.
It's a number. It's just a number.
Just a number.
So,
that's for sure. But you know things and have seen things and experienced ththings that we can only read about.
Let me start. But to your point,
cool.
I know where to start.
Okay.
How'd you meet my dad?
You know, that's probably, I can't, chronologically, I can't put a date on it. I remember back as early as when he and I were both in the 7th grade. First grade. We were 7 years old.
7 years old.
And so that's
1940.
40, 41, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Jeez.
And we've been buddies ever since then. And I could spend a lot of your time just talking about your dad, because he and I have been buddies forever.
Was he a good man?
Oh gosh, he was a man. I can't compare him. I can't think of anybody to compare him with. And as you know, your dad was a cowboy. And in our group of people that were the same age that we grew up together with, Donnie was always the cowboy. And he was a cowboy. Mm-hmm. And not unlike yourself, Rusty. I don't think Donnie was as much of a cowboy as you were, which I don't know if you were here to talk about you, but you had a particular place in your growing up in your cowboy years. Mm-hmm. As I recall, in your football years, for those of you who don't know Rusty, he was a tremendous fullback, linebacker. He was a tremendous football player for his size, because he wasn't huge, but he's bigger than his dad.
Yeah, Dad said he was 99 pounds soaking wet when he was a senior.
Yep. But
so I had 50 pounds on him.
Okay, so when you met Donnie, you're talking about you guys were here.
Yeah.
And what was Manson like then? How many kids were in your class? Did they all grow up here, born here?
I think the answer would probably be almost always yes.
And Judy, you said earlier you weren't from here.
I am not.
So
no,
where did you?
I'm a transplant.
You're a transplant.
I am.
But
I dragged her in.
A darn good one.
Yeah. No, I was born over on the Olympic Peninsula in Port Townsend, and did some of my younger years there, and then moved to the north end of Seattle.
You want to know, it's ironic. My daughter's 32, and I have 2 grandsons now. They're 6 and 2. She's a doctor of audiology in Port Townsend.
Huh.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you guys switched.
Yeah.
Well,
so can I add one thing about your dad, a comment?
You can say whatever
because,
you
see,
want.
I didn't grow up with your dad, but I would say that the thing about your dad probably that influenced me most was the kind of person he was. He would give anybody the shirt off of his back.
Absolutely.
He was always there to help people. we had an incident in our life where we lost a grandchild very tragically.
Oh my
And your dad was someplace, I can't remember where. I think it was maybe Spokane when he heard about it. And he called us immediately and he said, I will be there as soon as I can get there. You know, he was he was an incredible. I don't even cry.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something real quick
I get
about
that a lot.
our first
My dad.
episode 1, Kelsey. We talked about she had tragedy in her life too, like many of us do, and how that relates to this small town. How
Yes.
that can be such a blessing. How the small town might have some negatives. Any town will, but that the positive is when something happens.
Yep.
People are there for you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, indeed.
And
Yes.
Kelsey, see, Jim Finley was in your grade? And my
No,
dad's?
Jim Finley. Jim, yes, yeah, Jim Harding's uncle, Jim Finley.
So,
yes.
so Kelsey's Jim Harding's daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Russ just found out they're kind of
we're
related.
kind of, because Dick Finley, Nadine, my dad's sister,
Yeah,
married Dick Finley.
I was hoping we'd kind of get into that.
Yeah, I'd love to
Isn't
hear
that
it, how it's all connected.
It's all connected.
I'd love to hear your
In
version,
fact,
how you see it.
if you dig into small towns especially, because that's where I grew up, was in a small town, how many people are related to how many people? You might find things that might embarrass you.
Got to check the DNA at the dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do like to say that. You know, as someone that moved in here as a youth, was not born and raised here, I can tell you I've never really felt local because of that. I do not have relatives. I am not related to
yes.
anybody
Yeah.
here. And that is a big deal.
Well, yes, it probably is.
Yeah.
Bigger deal to you than to me.
Is it?
Well, I accept you unequivocally. So
I love that.
I have no problem with you moving in. And,
I love that.
But so, but I just want to say a smaller thing about your dad, about Donnie. We used to go have coffee quite often, and I could not buy a cup of coffee. And finally, I'd cheat. I'd lie, so I could get out there and pay for that cup of coffee before Donnie did. And even though I'd sneak out there early to pay for the coffee before we were through chatting, lying, and whatnot, Donnie had already been there and paid for it.
He's quick.
Now,
You
is
could
that where
not
you
buy
get
a
that
cup
from?
of coffee.
I don't know.
I have never bought a cup of coffee when I've been around you.
I think as a young person, when you have the love of a person like that, you are programmed to do certain things, and maybe that's one of them. I know the one that has got me in some trouble too is I don't do well with bullies, and my dad he didn't like bullies, right? He was his dad passed away when he was about 8. Do you remember that?
Well, I didn't. I don't remember. I only remember stories about them. I know only what I've been told, because I obviously wasn't out there when your grandfather
Yeah, passed away. He was
Passed
drowned
away.
right here in the Manson
Yeah.
Bay.
right in Manson Bay.
Two
yeah.
people drowned that day.
Two.
Yeah.
And there's the tie that you were talking about earlier. The other one died with your grandfather, Donnie's dad,
hmm
was Dick Finley's older brother.
Oh, it was.
And
It
then
was.
your sister was involved in that.
She was drowning.
She thought she was. I can't
Well,
say.
she's like 4'11", full grown. So
Yeah.
I heard the
Yeah.
story was the lady of the lake kind of took her. I don't know.
could well
But
be.
isn't that strange that 2 people passed away?
Yep. And I thought it was strange that her husband, later husband, was the brother of the man who passed away. I didn't know him because they were older than me by a long shot.
Wow.
So isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
The tie there.
Yeah. That is really
You know, there's
wild.
that old game people would play, 6 Degrees to Kevin Bacon.
Is that like the 7 degrees of separation?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Manson, it's usually just about 2.
Well, I mean, I got you here, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you.
Well-
maybe I'll be selfish a little bit on this with my dad because the stories.
You should be.
The thing is, I don't have I don't have documentation, right? I don't have any He didn't journal much. He didn't really record much. Back then it wasn't a lot of technology. So all I have is what I have, which is beautiful. But I love the fact that you grew up with him, and some of the things, if you don't mind, I'll ask you some things that he told me. I want to know if he was embellishing or not. Because he told me
that comes with age.
Yeah, that fish gets bigger. He told me there was a dance hall in Chelan in high school, and you guys would go into the dance hall on Saturday nights, and there would always be some, I call it friendly fisticuffs. So there would be some duking it out a little bit. And my dad always used to say, like, there was the Pittman brothers were big guys and various big guys, and Dad was always a little guy, and you guys used to bet that my little guy can beat up your little guy.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to that, and I can't verify it either, other than I was there.
Well, you can plead the fifth.
But yeah, as I said before, your dad was a small guy, but he's like a rattlesnake. Don't get him cornered, because he'd fire off. Yeah. And I'll tell you. Well, I would tell you a story if you want.
I love
yes,
it.
we would love the story. That's what it's all about.
But
the story.
maybe I shouldn't.
No, you can. We can edit it out.
I'm not going to tell you a lot of things because we did a lot of things together.
Well, we'll edit it out if we don't like it.
Some things I'm not going to repeat.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, but he was a tough little bugger.
One of the things I thought was fun, back in the days where everybody had a small orchard and frost pockets were an issue, and then for a long time there wasn't alarm systems. You had to sit down at the bottom.
Yep.
Do you remember my dad sitting at the bottom of our orchard on Barkley and Washington?
Sat a couple mornings with him, not a lot, but occasionally.
Yeah, what I used to find interesting, because I'd love to go down there and light those as a kid. You get all dirty and you get up. It's kind of like going fishing in the morning. You get to be up at night with him. But I thought it was interesting that people had enough trust in him that was their alarm. He was their alarm. They would go to sleep, and he'd be the one awake, watching the temperature all night long and work all day long. And then he'd call everybody else when it got cold to turn your wind machines on or light your smudge pots, turn your water on.
I wasn't a big part of that because my orchard was up on the top of the hill on Washington Street, so I had no problem.
Right.
But a couple times, not more than that, I went down and sat with your dad because I was probably out early looking, but not doing anything.
Yeah. A lot of history there.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this about growing up here. When you think of your childhood in Manson, what was fun for you as a child?
Certainly not my daily life. It was, I tell my grandkids and great grandkids, they don't believe, they think that, well, these are just grandpa stories, but they're true. They're true. My life was hard. Life was hard. We lived up on a mountain, up above Wapato Lake, when I was a little guy, and at a certain time of my youth, we had to walk from what was the name of that winery up there?
A Tom winery.
They built a winery right where our house used to be. We walked from there down to where Lower Joe Creek Road leaves Manson Boulevard, or Upper Joe Creek leaves Manson Boulevard. That's where we met the bus.
Yeah.
So that was tough. And then and here again, we did that in the winter every day, down and back.
Now my property line backs up to that winery. I'm on the back side of that.
By the back, do you mean the lake side?
No, I mean the Anilon Lake side.
Oh, okay. Really? Did you really?
So I'm in the dark now. I don't have sunshine.
Well, see, we used to own all that. My granddad came out and Homestead from Iowa when he was 19 in 1902.
No, I thought that was Venneberg's.
No, they were over the hill into Joe Creek.
Gotcha.
We used to walk up there, and a very steep hill. If you've been out in that country,
Yeah, I've hiked the whole
looking
thing.
down, that's steep. And we'd holler at the Venneberg kids, "Can you come out and play?"
Oh my gosh.
From the top
If
of
they
the
could, we'd go on down the hill. Otherwise, we're not going down the hill.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
What was your parents' story? Your mom and dad?
uh,
Homesteaders?
of course, they're both My dad was born here.
Okay.
My mother was born in Wenatchee, I think. I really don't know for sure.
Been a while.
Anyway, so
What did they farm? Did they?
yeah, my dad, as a lot of guys his age, in his generation, they didn't leave. They stayed here and worked in the orchards. And if you recall, the Depression was just ending about the time I was born in '34. So the whole time I can recall, got old enough to recall, they were hard times. My dad worked from orchard to orchard, and we lived in probably 7 to 8 different pickers' cabins around this community, most of which are gone now. But it was just one-room cabin, like you know what they are, Rusty.
Yeah, of course.
Just one room, maybe a stove and a bed or two, and there were hard times.
With 6 kids.
But,
Wow.
Well, it wasn't in the beginning, but
Right.
eventually it was 6.
Eventually.
You know,
yeah.
I can remember going out on the highway and picking dandelions that were at a certain age. They were to make salad.
to find food.
You know what's so fun about that is that what is old is new again, because that is really trending.
Oh, is it really?
Foraging, learning what you can eat,
Yeah.
eating dandelion leaf salad,
Yeah.
dandelion tea,
Yep.
uh, mushrooms. I mean, that's
Well, just the whole idea of growing your own food, knowing where it comes
Yeah.
from.
yeah.
You know, that it kind of went the other direction,
Yeah.
right? You know, from that to Fruity Pebbles. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well,
you know,
Yeah.
we grew up in a good time. We like Wonder Bread and Fruity Pebbles. It's
Oh,
very
yeah.
good food for you.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, now it is you're trying to find that ability to be healthy, try to stay healthy. But look at you, you're 90 years old. You look fantastic. I don't think you've aged in 40,
Thank
50
you.
years.
But you know,
You both. I just can't. You know, 56 years of marriage. I just am amazed.
I've thought about this, not because I'm 90, just because I am what I am. How come I got to live so long, which I appreciate, but all my buddies, and you know them because you gave me a picture of them,
Yeah.
which was the greatest picture, been very great spot in our house. And they all died in about a 6-month period. There were 4 or 5 of them.
Doug Clearwater, Jim Finley,
Yeah.
Yep.
and yourself, my dad.
Yep.
Dad.
Yeah.
And so there is no secret. I don't think there's a secret. You take care of yourself along the line, that's all.
You've always, to me, since I was a little kid, always been uplifting. You've always had a good attitude. You've always been very curious. Mind. You have a curious mind. Want to learn. Want to know about people. And you've always. And then even when I think we bought Don Steger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and my dad and I, when we
Yeah.
went in with Don, got the orchard there
Yep.
from you
Yeah.
guys, and I remember those.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know, those were, in my opinion, a lot of stuff I give you is my opinion. There's no way to check the veracity of it. Those were the end of the good apple years.
yeah.
Yeah.
We were fortunate that we taught school for 20 years, then kids got out of the house and were gone. We said, "Whoa, let's go back home." And so that's why we came back
I
here.
see. So when did you leave? You left out of high school and went and got a teaching degree, and then you went to teach school.
Yeah. I was a PE major, as was Judy, and so I coached for several years, and then we'd just come back for visits, or like kids do.
Right.
And at the same time, those 4 or 5 people that you took a picture of, most of them went in the service
Yeah.
because the Korean conflict was just ending there, and I found out that if I went to college and you had to take reserve officer training corps in school and you kept your grades up, the government would leave you alone. And it worked.
Yeah. I think my dad said he was drafted in '56.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
And
Or
the people we're talking about, we graduated in '52.
Yeah.
So your dad, I just can't remember now exact what he did, but I remember some things he did for that 4-year interim. He worked in the spraying business,
Oh yeah, he's a flagger.
holding the flag,
Yeah.
so the helicopter or airplane come by and hit the right row
Yeah,
where the flag was.
I tell that story to people when they're like, "Oh, these pesticides," and I go, "My dad swam in it.
Yeah.
They just douse him with it."
Your
And
dad,
all
your dad
live
just
to
sat there and got wet.
It's like, what's the
Oh
problem?
my God.
Yeah.
I remember growing up spraying, the orchards with him, and I'd be like, "Don't you think you should put a mask on?" It's like, but there you guys are, living in 80s, 90s.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I think probably various reasons more has been made of these, and I'm not going to minimize it. I wouldn't tell you anybody should sit in
Spray
dope. But we did.
Yeah.
I recall vividly when we were out spraying with Dad or my grandfather,
Yeah.
that you did it with a gun on a hook to a hose and a tank. And you had a rubber suit because you didn't want to get contaminated. So it gets so hot there, you just turn the gun straight up so you could cool down.
That's
So you
hilarious.
get rained on.
That's
Oh my
hilarious.
gosh.
You'd be really frowned on if you did that today.
Yeah, I remember my dad. I remember when you talk about the good days, good old days, changing, and the apple prices changing, and the color sorter came in, and all the stuff, right? But he was like, when the day that they made us get a flagger at the edge of the rows, that would be like, in a way, you're like, yeah, of course, you don't want to spray somebody going by in a car. But my dad was like, what? You have to. They see the spray dope. If you're that dumb to drive through the spray dope,
Drive on through it, you're going to get some on you.
you're going to get some money. You telling me you got to pay somebody with a flag to stand there? I was like, the government's making us be criminals.
Well, and that's another drastic change that's occurring
hilarious.
as we all get older, and things happen like that because of our legal system. Somebody got sued for a hot cup of coffee, and they made $300 million.
Yeah, right.
So now you see stamps on everything, like on a battery. Do not drink the fluid in this battery. Well, would you think some idiot would?
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
some idiot probably did.
Yes.
So now they have to put a warning on everything.
Would you say in growing up here that in those times just a lot more common sense, like because things were so hard and you didn't really have a lot of chance to complain, you just had to work.
Right. You had to rely on yourself, and most people are still able to do that, but we had to. We didn't want to. We had to.
Would you go back to those times?
Probably in a minute.
Well, that's interesting. I mean,
That is interesting. Because I
Because-
feel like my grandparents wanted my parents' lives to be easier, and my parents wanted my life to be easier.
And that was, we could talk on quite a while. That I wanted my children, since I had a real tough. I love my growing up years. I don't that I don't, but they were tough.
yeah, they don't call it the Great Depression for no reason.
Yeah.
It means people didn't have money, didn't have food, didn't have jobs.
Yep.
And scary. 6 kids, I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
really.
Or more.
It
Some
was
people have.
tough.
Well, how many people do you think know? There's that Apple Annie's in Kashmir. How many people you think know who Apple Annie is anymore?
I think a lot of things. One of the reasons we're doing this podcast is to try to preserve some of the information in a form where kids and grandkids and great-grandkids can maybe not only get the experiences but get the knowledge. Because I
Yes.
would say I don't think very many.
And it might by doing it this way, young people who look at this or listen to it might believe it, as opposed to if I just say it.
Yeah. Or they won't believe me that you
They won't-
said it.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Well, if you
exactly.
don't know Apple Annie's, Google it.
Yeah.
And we don't need to talk about it, but that's that was a thing, and that was a big deal, and those are desperate times. People are desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I got a little taste of that. I wouldn't call it desperate, but when we moved over here, that was in 1975, we quit really great teaching jobs on the other side of the mountains and decided we wanted a different lifestyle than what we were living over there. And so when we moved back here, we literally started with nothing. And it was a great experience for me, and it was a really good experience for our daughter who was with us, because
How
we had
old was
to.
she?
How old was she then?
Yeah.
She was
Senior.
16, going on 17. She was a senior that
Oh my
year.
gosh, she moved to her senior year.
By her choice,
Yeah.
By her choice.
and she loved it here.
Wow.
And she's still here. So that's a testament.
Wow,
But
okay.
we went through this huge learning process of how to be self-sufficient. And kids today cannot even begin to identify with what it takes to raise your own food, to preserve your own food, and know that you are going to have food on the table in the winter if you can't afford to go to the store and buy everything you need. Now, we weren't destitute, but we had to have a big garden. And I learned more about gardening in the first year we were here than I ever wanted to know in my whole life.
Yeah.
But those things are gone from, not from our kids so much because they're older and they grew up with a little bit of it, but our grandkids and our great-grandkids have very little knowledge on how to survive on their own. And it's good that we're getting back to some of that in our society, but
I agree,
we've
100%.
raised generations of kids in fast food.
Yeah.
And
No, yeah, I've
they-
got an 8-year-old, and I can tell you that my dad grew up dirt floor poor,
Yeah.
dairy farmer, and that's no way to be a farmer. I'm
No.
telling you,
No,
that's hard.
yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and it jogged me of something. You know, when I grew up, we had none of my kids, none of our friends, we didn't even know we were poor.
Yes.
We were dirt poor, but we didn't know it because everybody was the same.
Yeah, everybody was the same.
Your family too.
Yeah.
You know that
Yeah. Well, my mom-
that's a
my-
gift.
yeah.
That's a gift, I think.
is.
Because the discernment now between have and have not breaks some people.
It is.
And the
It's huge.
Breaks
perception
their
of
spirit.
it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
online perception, social media perception, which isn't real most of the time. It just
Oh,
it's just like
yes.
a bullying, cyberbullying, you know. It's
But
like-
but to your point, like I was just saying, just about the foraging becoming such a popular thing now. That's a big deal to me
Yeah,
to
it
bring
is.
back the way that my grandparents did things. And I think often in raising my child, because I grew up in Bellevue, of means, I did not struggle at all, ever. My life couldn't have been more comfortable. Not complaining, but I also was connected to people who
That's right.
suffered, and life was hard, and they struggled. But like you're saying, they felt they had a really good life, and
Yeah.
I don't want that to be lost
Yes. Yeah.
on my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was a great. I feel very strongly that I grew up in the most ideal time in the history of our world, in the late 40s, early and 50s, and early 60s. Those were great times. And I was going to say about the apple industry because you've experienced this. We bought orchard, came back and bought orchard. We didn't. I never did inherit any, even though my granddad and dad did it. We had none left, but for me, so we had to buy an orchard. But we were in the probably 25-year period when you didn't even have to be very smart, and you made money
Yeah.
because
if you worked hard, you made money.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. You did have to be a hard worker.
Yeah.
Well, you
And
had to work hard, yeah.
And during that time, let me ask you one question: did you coach or teach when you got here?
No,
So you were done with?
I was done.
I taught
You taught? You were,
for
you,
2 years after we moved over
So
here.
we could keep eating.
yeah, and then you also got into real estate.
I did.
What year did you get a real estate license or start selling real estate?
Man, well, let's see. I started at Wapato Point selling
Mm-hmm.
timeshare real estate.
From like in the
My
early 80s?
gosh.
So it
The
would
early
have been
80s,
the
yeah.
early 80s,
For a shoe cart. George.
and loved it. I did.
Yeah. Good lucrative times, too.
It was
Very
same
lucrative
thing. Yes.
times, and I loved working out
Yeah.
there. And I could really identify with those people who were coming. I had a great experience there because those people came from the same environment I did.
I
Almost
see.
all of them
You
were
could
coming
speak the
from
language.
Seattle.
You spoke
so-
their language.
Yeah.
I did.
Exactly.
And I think to me, one of the greatest things I feel about my real estate career is some of the best friends I have today are people that I sold property to, including timeshares.
Yeah, it's
And
for sure,
that's
isn't it? Where
cool.
your clients become
Yeah.
your friends.
Yeah.
You know you've treated people right and done a good thing for them. And many of my clients that I sold timeshare to eventually became full-time owners here, and they became my real estate clients too.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. That's a lead generation.
Yeah.
You get a little taste of this
Yeah.
area, and they're
Yeah.
like, I want to get back. That lifestyle
Well,
is good.
that's what led us here.
Yeah.
Is relationships.
Do you know? I,
being the core.
so when I got licensed, I got licensed in 1989. I was 19, and I remember you, and you were always very, very kind.
Oh,
to,
good.
to me.
I'm glad that was a
Yeah,
good
you're
memory.
always very kind to me when I started the
Yeah.
business and didn't know, up and down.
But
Still
you know,
don't. But.
the other thing too, I sold real estate here at what I consider kind of like what Earl says, the best years. And I say that because it was all community oriented. We did not have a big out of town real estate company. We had local people who were brokers who had really good, honest real estate companies here. So you didn't have that huge competitive factor of the big conglomerate type real estate. And I'm not saying they're bad, but it's different.
It was different. You know who else was like that was Bernice McCauley.
Oh, yeah.
And I ended up
absolutely.
buying, I bought
Yeah.
Bernice McCauley's company in
You
'98
did.
because she made me.
Yeah.
She didn't give me a choice.
Yeah.
She's like, you're buying my company, this is how
Yeah.
we're doing it. And I
Yeah.
said, okay.
But it was, I mean, and you have to admit it was different then.
It was. I mean, it's probably like you have way more experience than I do. I'm 55, but there's always good and bad.
Yeah,
And a lot of it
absolutely.
is the positive spin that you try to put on it the best you can.
And
Yeah.
there's the key, Rusty. You can focus on the bad,
Easily.
Yeah.
or you can focus on the positive.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
Did you know my grandma Daisy very well?
Oh, did I know Daisy? She was one of the neatest women in town.
Now, she went through some hardship.
Of course she did.
Outlived 3 husbands. I used to say, you're kind of hard on men, Grandma. She's like, they just couldn't keep up with me.
That's right.
She had a great, even through the tragedies,
Of course.
she had this ability to, I asked her one time, because she came here in a covered wagon when she was 7, 8 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And
That just wows
that's 2
me.
people ago.
That's just what that wows
And
me.
as a single mother of 3 children,
Yeah. Yeah.
outliving 3 husbands over
Yeah.
the years, and still, I always just looked at her and go, "How do you maintain such a positive attitude?" And
Oh,
you know what
man.
she told me? She said, "Rusty, you just pick one
Did
thing."
she
a
call
day."
you Rusty?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was either it was Russell Eugene when I was in trouble by my mom, and then it was Russ later, and Rusty
Which was
when I was in high
which
school.
was a lot of the time.
A lot of the times, yeah. Get that wooden spoon. I'm coming after you. My mom, who's another beautiful human, but she would say, just focus on one thing a day that you're grateful for, and just concentrate on that.
The positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you're thinking about 3 husbands, a son that died, tough death, and then Great Depression,
Yeah.
Vietnam, Korea,
Yeah.
World War I, World War II. I mean, it's like
It's a lot of things.
a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cow.
Okay, so
How you doing?
what I've heard you say that, and I want to know what you think about this, is that you grew up here, and then you left for career and your family, and then you came back because of the lifestyle. Do you think? Because I feel like I hear that a lot. Do you think that that's kind of a common thread between the people that live here and move here? That we
Lifestyle?
want to have the lifestyle.
Well, I'm sure it is. I mean, but after I finally retired, I started playing golf, which I'd never had time or money to do before. But so I met a lot of people from they would kill to get over here.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the lifestyle. Of course it was, because we still had it. Well, we still do, but it was something they just could hardly wait to get over here. And it's still happening. A lot of people would buy a house over here, or a few people, and they'd spend summertime here, And then pretty soon they didn't go back anymore.
That's how I got here.
Yeah.
So,
That's
So
how I got
let
here.
me ask you from your guys' perspective, and you were in real estate for quite a while and grew up here, moved away, came back. So like this double-edged sword where on one hand, you sure don't blame anybody for wanting to be here.
No.
Right? You can't judge them. And then on the other hand, things change. And so there's some, as we go through life, the real estate values have gone up because of this thing called supply and demand.
sure.
Tends to be an issue. Yet there's also people that I see have, like the haves and have-nots that you talked about. They have their money and they have their time and they are in a good place and they don't want this town to change. And there's other people that need the town to change. So this gentrification where you got this income moving from somewhere else that's more money. How do you feel about like going back to your childhood to today? How do you feel about the changes that they're kind of inevitable, but is it good? Is it not good? This change from apples to vineyards is crazy. All this change.
Well, to me, old people hate change. I really don't like what is happening to my town.
And what was, now, and this, can you be more specific in that?
Well, the fact that when I was growing up in here in the late 40s, early 50s, we had a theater. We had two grocery stores. We had a hardware store. We had 2 or 3
Here?
gas stations here in Manson.
Wow.
We had a Sears store.
We had a Sears store. We had a barber.
variety
We had a
store.
doctor. We didn't have a dentist yet. But we didn't have to go to Wenatchee or Chelan for anything. We did because we thought we'd get a better deal. You know how that goes.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was all right here.
Is that the 10-cent movie theater, or is that what it was called? My dad used to talk about that. Some kind of dime
or a
theater.
nickel or
Nickel, yeah.
Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon.
Hello.
It was right. You know where?
That's where that comes from.
And was it Willie's Hardware Store? Was that the name?
Willie wasn't the hardware. He was he got a clothing store.
Clothing store. That was
Yeah.
Miller. Willie
Miller.
Willard Miller.
Yeah. Gary Miller's dad.
Great
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Well, all those merchants were, they loved us.
Yeah.
If I headed home, all people were this way. It's one of the neat
Ernie's
things.
gas
I'd
station.
head home
Ernie.
at night, and I didn't make it home because somebody was on the porch. We knew everybody, and they knew me. Come on and have dinner. So I stayed and had dinner. Sometimes I'd stay all night.
Mm-hmm.
But we had no phones. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no phones in those days.
So the change when you like what's happening so right now, the lack of diversification in the town,
Yes.
that the
Yeah.
stores are just turning into
They're-
not diversified.
There are wineries from one end to the other.
Yeah, yeah. Gonna need some
All-
taxi cabs here pretty soon.
All those
You
stores
know,
are gone.
It's sad in a way, isn't
I
it?
have 2 businesses that rely on people coming,
Of course.
and I don't. The internet and Amazon have changed everything.
Boy.
And Costco, the box store, the internet, the Amazons. I don't know that we're ever gonna
No.
see that kind of thing
We're
again.
not going to go back
No.
because many people are making a living here, I guess, or else they came with a pocket full of money. I don't know.
Well,
Some of
you
both.
know,
Some of those for
I mean,
sure.
this is just my perspective. I can be completely wrong. If we spent more money here in our hometown and kept it here, we would be better off.
Well, it goes to supply and demand, right? If there's not a way to make a living at a hardware store, you're not going to be a hardware store.
Yeah.
So if you shop locally, I mean, it's like this
Yeah.
catch-22 where you
Yep.
want the best prices, but it's from China.
Yep.
Is that what you want? And then it's hard because
It's
it's hard. It's a hard dilemma.
But
And
that's interesting when you said this is your perspective. I'm glad to hear your perspective because I know your perspective is going to be different than mine. Your whole background is different than mine. So
Not that
I
much.
hope you have a different way to
You
look
guys
at
have a
things.
lot more in common than you think.
It doesn't make it bad. It just makes it different.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I don't have an answer to it. I just see that it's a problem, and I have wishful thinking, but I don't forecast that that's what's going to happen.
Well, and I don't know about forecast, but I think, just like you think, based on what you know, we are not headed for better times. We're headed for worse times. Worse in a lot of ways. That would take a whole lot of time to discuss each one.
Now, you say that, Earl, it's kind of interesting because you went through world wars. And it's funny that we look back at that, I didn't go through that.
No.
And to hear somebody say we're going through worse times than that, is it worse or different?
Well, you'll have to ask for my opinion.
Of course, I do.
I can't foresee the future any better than you can.
Right.
But I can read what I know and see things changing. And I don't mean to say that the technology is not good. It makes my life easier.
Right.
But making my life easier might make me die earlier.
It's funny you say that. We just had Kelsey and your child, and technology is a problem. It's a problem for kids.
Boy,
the addiction is real.
Yes, it is.
It's real.
We have many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and they come to visit, and we sit here talking to them, and they, oh, yeah. I say, get that phone, put that phone away. But that's their life.
Well, Kelsey and I have a different opinion about that with our kids.
You think they should be able to just sit there and not talk to you?
No, we think they should not have the
Oh,
technology.
of course, that's what.
Yeah,
Ours will do that until we say, put that phone away.
I called my daughter. My grandson turned 6, and I bought him a gun. She goes, I think it's a little early. And I'm like, well, that iPad's pretty dangerous too. Let me show him how to shoot a .22. Okay, let's start getting outside and yet I get it. I mean, I get it. I understand it, but it's an ironic situation that something that makes your life easier
cannot be good for you.
Right. Do you remember this quote? This kind of, I don't know who originally said it, 1,000 years ago probably, but hard times make great men make soft times make hard times, soft times make hard men.
that.
So it's circular.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so you get too spoiled, and then it gets worse.
So
and then
you're generally just essentially saying your experiences in life make you what you are.
Yeah, and you look back at your childhood, and you said it was, I didn't know we were poor. I think that's a fascinating thing, because right now, the haves and have-nots, that's one of the hardest things for people to deal with because of the judgment. For children, you know, you go to a school, this kid has this new coat, you have an old coat, and the comparison and contrasting of how money works. And it's funny that that point you all were the same, and you're all very different but hard workers.
And we didn't know any different.
Yeah.
We were happy.
But I think you just said it.
Yeah.
What I
Right.
keyed in on when you first spoke was that you were happy. You know,
Yeah.
Rusty asked, what was fun when you were a kid? And you never did answer that.
Well, you know,
That worked.
Right.
we
Right.
all, I'm just talking about my age when we graduated, we could hardly wait to get out of town. We had no appreciation because we were kids. Kids are not, well, I was going to say kids are not very smart, but they have not had the experiences.
Life experience.
When I graduated, I didn't learn this till I was about 30. I didn't know what I didn't know. How much I didn't know. I didn't know how much I didn't know.
Yeah, for sure. When you look back and you think about high school, what was the funnest memory you have? What's the one that jumps out at you?
A particular event, or probably most fun was for me was playing football.
Playing football. You
Yeah.
were a very good football player. Did you play football in college too?
No, I didn't. You know, I thought what I really was a big fish in a small pond.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't learn that until I got to college and tried to play football. You know, I was 170 pounds and 5'11". I thought I was a big shot. I'm a big man. I got over there, and 250, 300 pounders running up my back, running me down.
Yeah. Let me ask you this about the rivalries. My dad
the good one.
My dad used to talk about. See, back then, for people that may not know, because the small farmers had some stability if they worked hard, all the communities had some stability in the income based on agriculture, like the Eniat, the Leavenworth, Shaston, Dryden, you know, Manson, all of Pateris, Brewster, all of them, right?
Yep.
So therefore, you had generational rivalries. Like I remember playing in sports when your generation were in the stands at the opposite team, and I'd be like, well, they beat me in high school, but my kid's kicking your kid's
Yeah.
butt. You know, it's like, because you all knew each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And my dad talks about that pride, and yet it was intense, like intense rivalries. Do you remember it like that?
Yeah, there was a lot of, I can't tell you how many times people in Manson and Chelan have talked about making one school district,
Yeah, I remember that.
and it's failed every time.
I remember.
Manson people don't want it, Chelan people don't want it,
Yeah.
but somebody was talking it,
Oh, yeah.
so it's never happened.
So, okay, that's interesting that you brought that up, because someone who I wish was still here that we could have as a guest is Joe Teague.
Who?
Joe Teague.
Joe Teague.
Oh, yeah.
And
Beautiful man.
in his later years, I was sitting in his house with him, and we talked about that very thing. And he called that one of his regrets.
That never
That
happened.
he was so adamantly opposed to combining, because at the time when it could have been done efficiently and economically, it would have been a great time to do it and to bring everyone together, and then the potential for that high school, just to be stronger, have more kids, more resources.
Yeah. You'd be a big school.
It'd be a big school.
Bigger.
Big
Yeah.
is not necessarily good, or
No, but we're still small.
Yeah.
But just resource-wise, with where, again, you can't look forward into a crystal ball and know what's going to happen. But
No.
in his career, seeing what
That's an
did
interesting
happen.
perspective, because I remember in the 80s it was pretty close.
Yeah.
There was a time where there was a referendum and there was a voting, and it didn't really materialize. And I think in large part because you think about the pride of the people that had come before, where now it's probably still that way. I mean, my kids are older, so you're going to experience it again, the rivalry, but there's more. I think, like with looking at my kids, there's more integration between the friendships, where we were friends, but we were also on the football field.
of course.
We were pretty intense.
We're ready to beat you.
A lot of pride,
And I was going to say the same thing. We were good friends with several of the athletes from Chelan. We didn't play on the same team, nor did we even play against each other in football, for instance.
Right.
But as soon as we all that in '52, when I left and went to college, many of them did too. We all went to Washington State at that time. We became good buddies because we all migrated and had to get from Manson Chelan to Pullman.
My daughter graduated from there. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you're a big cougar. I see.
Yeah, it's there's nothing like being a cougar.
In 1952, now my dad told me that for years he played football down at Wapato Point. Is that correct?
Yeah, but only when we were freshmen. I played down there when I was freshman only.
Then they built the.
Then our fathers all got their tractors out and built kind of where the field is now.
Wow.
Yeah,
I bet that was a big deal.
it was a big deal. It was pretty,
love that.
pretty tough physically, because the county would clean out the ditches, and dump their stuff up there so the dads can spread it out and make a field. Well, the first year we played, our hands would come back, would turn out our game, and we were bleeding out of our hands.
Oh, gravel.
What's going on? Well, the dishes were full of beer bottles.
Oh, no.
So a bunch of
I've
crushed
never heard
glass.
What?
So they cleaned out the ditches on the highway, and they bring the fill to the football field. Your dads with your orchard tractors would spread it,
Yeah.
and then you go play on broken glass.
Yeah.
There's a different
Well,
level.
it wasn't as bad as what I made out to be.
It might have been worse. I'm thinking. You're
Anyway,
tougher.
that's how it happened anyway.
You're just tougher, that's all. What'd you guys do? Play it on dirt? Gravel? No, we played
No.
on glass.
That really, that's, yeah.
So uphill
well,
3 foot of snow
that's
both
ne-
ways.
Yep,
Makes
that's
sense
next
now.
level.
Same
That's-
kind of story.
Yeah.
That's next level.
The problem is it's true. It's
So
not
did,
a, pro-
did,
it's
did
not a
you,
problem.
in 1950, so 1956, my mom graduated from
Yep.
Manson High School. She was the 1956 princess,
Yep.
along with Marilyn Schultz.
Yep.
So when my dad was, 4 years older than her, do you remember when he first met her? Do you have any conscious memory of that?
Well, my first no. But when early in their courting, yes.
Yeah.
Very well.
I look at her pictures and I think you might have outpunted his coverage.
Yeah, and the reason I can say that with some authority, her sister was in my class.
Jackie or Georgia?
Georgia.
So you were what grade? 52?
52.
With my dad.
Yeah.
And in Georgia, I remember Andy Anderson. Remember my
Georgia may have been the year, I forget right
yeah,
now.
Yeah. I just remember my mom telling me the story that he gave Georgia a ride home, and my mom was in the back seat. And then my dad's like, And then they started, like, dropped her off last or something. I don't know. It was pretty funny, but I told the story earlier. You might appreciate this because my dad was very non-judgmental, right?
Well, of course he wasn't.
No, he's very selfless, loved to help people.
Exactly, he was.
And then one day, he hadn't had a stroke yet, so he's probably 80. And I see there's an older gentleman, probably in his mid-90s, 90 older, but my dad knew him. And he goes, don't really like that guy. And I was like, that's not like you. I've never heard you talk negatively about anybody. I was thinking to myself, like, first of all, you're 80. How can you not? What's happening? What did he do? And he goes, he looked at your mom in that way. And I said, he's 90. What are you talking about? When did he do that? And he goes, 1956.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, good thing we're not holding grudges around here.
That's one of the things you didn't cross your dad
He
about.
loved my mom, didn't he?
Yes,
He did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Then he went off to Korea.
But I could spend hours on your dad. But
You told the story at his funeral, and I thank you again for speaking at his service.
I loved it.
And you told the story about you two decided to swim across the lake. How old were you when you did that? That's a big ask.
We were seniors in high school. That's one of the dumbest things I can think of 4 guys doing. There were 4 of us. Do you know we almost drowned? And that was very unusual for your dad because he didn't learn. He was against swimming from that point, your sister's point on.
Yeah, she passed away. He was 8 when she died, right in front of, or his dad died in front of him in the swimming pool.
We spent a lot of time swimming. There was a dock across the street on the lake from where your dad was raised.
Yeah.
So we spent the rest of us spent a lot of time there swimming, but not your dad. He was always with us. Mm-hmm. But anyway, one day after football practice in harvest, we have some nice days in harvest, really nice days. We were out at Wally Peterson's and looked across there, and in those days, tourists were different.
Were they?
If there was a new girl in town, it was a tourist, and we got all excited.
Oh, I know that. I know that same feeling.
Don't have to check the DNA then.
No, it was a new group every weekend, and that was all right.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a nice hot day. So let's swim across the lake to Kelly's Resort. Was
That's
right
not
across.
That's not easy.
No,
to do.
it's not. I mean, that is one of the narrowest spots,
still-
but
Well, it's
Cold.
probably a mile and a half.
Yeah.
But we didn't take a coat, no life jackets. No, 4 of us says, "Okay, let's go."
Yeah.
And-
No safety boat.
No. but we didn't know, like one of those things, I didn't know how much we didn't know. Mm-hmm. We didn't know about hypothermia.
Pretty
The
cold.
lake
right
was
there.
nice. By the time you've been in an hour, you are freezing. You can still do that today in the middle of summer. About the last 50 yards, we were not making any headway, and we're just barely sucking air, and people on the beach came out and got us. Or we may not be here today.
Wow.
How stupid.
well, that's youth and
boys.
That's kids.
arrogance a little bit, ignorance.
We knew we could do it.
Confidence. You talking about?
Okay, well,
You know what?
you call it what you want.
You know what else we didn't think about?
How are you gonna get back?
How are we going to get back?
Yeah, how did you get back? Nice tourist girl give you a ride?
We conned some girls.
Of course you did.
So Earl came to me. I went to his house and I gave you that picture, and he tells me, "Hey, I told that story about at your dad's service, us swimming across the lake, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate to tell everybody how we got back.
Yeah. Well,
Found some
that was
girls
the,
out of boat.
that was the height of stupidity.
Hey, that's just good salesmanship. That's good work.
I have a long list of things tourist boys would do to find out where the party was or where the
You
They
wanna
did a
know-
lot of work for me. Worked out great.
Yep.
Don't regret 1 minute of it.
And it worked out great for us, a generation or two ahead of you.
Yeah,
We made it work.
of course.
What advice would you give to?
Oh boy.
What advice would you give? How can I put this to people that are find themselves in a difficult situation? Because you grew up very, even though you didn't know you were poor, because everybody was poor. But let's say you're on hard times, and there's a lot of people that are committing suicide. Their depression is over the top. Their anxiety is over the top, and there's a lot of reasons, probably from programming as a child to social media, everything in between. What would you say as somebody that survived a lot and has stayed married? What are those advice? How do you stay married for 56 years? And what would you say to somebody that's hurting right now?
Well,
Because you always had a good attitude. I mean,
there's
it's just-
a lot of there's no one thing,
yeah.
but certainly you have to learn if you're going to get along in your marriage. This is not only true of marriage; it's for friends too. If you care about them, you need to be you need to give and take.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be concerned about them. Not just as you can. You guys, you're growing up a generation later, but you have to be concerned. Not just quit think about me. How is it going to affect me? I want it for me. Think about how your friends feel or what they need. Pay attention. What do they need? Help them.
Mm-hmm. It's hard for people to ask for help sometimes.
Yeah.
And be honest.
Be honest.
And,
Yeah. Be sincere.
try to face things that are real and not things that you think might happen or whatever, but to evaluate each situation based on, is this true? Is it false? Is it fun? Is it not? Is it important? Is it not? We all go through this a little bit with our handling of our finances in our family,
Yeah.
where you evaluate all the time the goods and the bads, and you hope that the goods outweigh the bads and not just focus on the problem.
Yeah.
The problem. And so many kids today, particularly young people today, they can't get their eyes off of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do define the problem, they don't have the ability or the experience or the guidance, whatever it takes, to be able to evaluate how to get themselves out of that situation. And I feel sorry for kids growing up today. It's tough. We live in a tough
It's
society
real
for
tough.
kids. There's no good and bad anymore. There's no good and evil. Everything is okay. If he's
only-
doing it, it's okay for me to do it.
It's only
There's-
true is how you perceive it is
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard thing. We have several kids in our lives right now who are not actually our relatives, but they're kids that have grown up with us, that, they're really good kids. They're very strong Christian kids, and they battle every day of their life with the society that they're in that makes everything okay. It's all an even playing ground. And it's not all okay. And a lot of their parents don't know how to deal with it, which is hard if you don't have some good communication. It's essential
Yeah, we were
with
saying
young
that.
people today. You
I-
have to be able to communicate with them and have some understanding of what they're going through in their daily life, accepting, boys that want to be girls and girls that want to be boys, and all of these things that we never had to deal with any of that
Right.
kind of stuff. And it was probably out there, but it wasn't, everything in society wasn't okay.
Yeah.
It's only if you get caught that it's not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. That's again. You look back at the peer pressure. There was peer pressure,
Oh,
I'm
boy.
sure, when you grew
Yes.
up.
Always will
Yeah.
be.
And now there's this social media presence. You
Yes.
probably see it in your
Yeah.
grandkids, where, like you said, they're, and unfortunately, I think the inside of you compared to the filtered outside of someone else, where all you're seeing is they got a better car, they got a better girlfriend, they got a better job, they got a
Exactly.
better house. I'm just like, it's just kind of belittling if you let it be. And what we were talking about with Kelsey is, it's okay to ask for help. and that's hard to do.
Yes.
You bet it
It
is.
is.
Or if you're confused and you don't know what to do, it's
Yeah.
part of this whole podcast idea that we have is to make sure that people know that it's okay. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. I mean, that's
Yeah.
an old
Yeah.
thing, that
Well, that's just pure pride,
Yeah.
and pride can be dangerous.
dangerous. Yeah. And so when there's confusion and anxiety, and it's a different thing than it's ever been, and I feel lucky to grown up when I grew up. A generation behind you.
Yeah, but you were right on our tail.
But gosh, you think about my grandma 2 people ago, covered wagon. You guys, me, now my kids, and then your kids, 8 years old, and
Yep.
I think it's different now. You have to ask. You have to to your point. I love what you said. Identify if somebody that you care about needs something, and don't wait for them to ask you.
That's right, because
I mean,
they're not going.
because that's the other
won't-
side of
Yeah,
it.
it
Yeah.
is.
And we should do
Yeah.
more of that. I mean, we talk about in my real estate business that grace, forgiveness, and generosity has to be a part of the business plan.
Oh,
Yeah.
And if it's not, then we have a problem, because then it's and I went through it. I mean, personally, when I thought money for a long time was the scorebook, was like the football
that's
score.
right.
And if I had it,
that's how you measure success.
that's how I thought I did.
No.
And I was like, why am I not happy? And then I didn't have any money. I was like, oh, well, this is kind of a good life lesson
Yeah.
to get busted down, because, if you're not humble, life will find a way of making sure you are.
Yep.
And,
Something that you spoke about that I've been thinking about this whole time that I know I appreciated when I grew up here was you're walking home and your people are on their front porch and you're there for dinner, and I wonder, I'm kind of curious how much of that still is, that open door kind of policy
Let me
where you're
just
welcome.
give you an example. Just a couple of days, some old friends knocked on our door, and long story short, we visited a while, and they said, "We're sorry, we came unannounced." I said, "What is wrong with you? That's what we survived on. You drive by a house and, we haven't seen Bill and Mabel for 2 months. Let's go in." And you had dinner and you had a visit and you moved on.
Yeah, there's
because you didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
so you didn't-
yeah, there was smoke signals and door knocking. Those are the two.
I only have a couple places where I feel like that's okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also.
Isn't that too bad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because one of those people just stopped by my house on Thanksgiving. They were out as a family cutting down their Christmas tree. And they just, were driving by and they popped in and it surprised me. It was great. I loved it, but it was also surprising. And I wish it weren't.
Did it interrupt you?
No,
Okay.
they could have come and sat down.
Good.
Yeah. No, I wish it didn't surprise me.
Yeah. I think so much of it is people's perception today, because we're not used to that. We used to be used to that,
Right.
but now maybe cell phones contribute to that. You got to call somebody and see if it's okay to stop by or whatever. But a lot of people don't even do that, because so often we don't even talk anymore. We just write to
Text.
one another. We
Yeah.
just text, and so
Yep.
when you text, you're really not getting emotion.
There's no emotion there in a text.
So nobody's saying to you, "Oh gosh, I wish you would stop by. I'd love to see you." You're saying in a text, "Well, stop by sometime."
Yeah.
Whole
what
different
what I
meaning.
find,
I agree with you.
and what I wonder about with myself is the addiction or glorification of busyness. That we're busy.
Oh.
Yes, yes,
Which means working hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
But it also means,
Like, it's what it
being
doesn't mean that, but you think it means that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The-
It means you don't,
we're more connected because we can text 50 people, but we're disconnected.
that's right. And everybody is very, very, very busy.
I'm busy. I'd love
Yeah.
to see you, but I'm busy.
But
Yeah.
we need to prioritize.
You know, one of the things I think about a lot is, I was going to ask you this. There were bad men when you grew up. There were horrific things that happened to people. There was disease and death and mayhem. But I think sometimes because of the internet, we just know about it more.
instantly.
All we
Somebody
hear
had a car
about
wreck and somebody took a picture of it.
Yeah, so it's like, whoa, that happened in Kentucky. Whoa, that happened in Wenatchee. Whoa, and before I was wondering if you thought it happened then
Yeah,
too.
I wonder how you feel about that too.
Yeah, it just didn't. You just didn't know about it as much. It wasn't top of mind because you're busy working probably. I'm just curious how you feel about that.
Well, I don't know, but I thought a lot. I have to think about that answer. I thought a lot about what's going on television.
Mm-hmm.
We see what happens when they drop a bomb.
Oh,
We see an empty building there with people sitting out in the street with no food, no nothing. Mom and dad got killed. And the building is shambles.
mm-hmm.
What war did we ever see that happen?
Yeah.
We were right there watching it.
Can you imagine in Korea
So-
if they had video cameras on cell phones?
Yeah.
Like in a way, I guess, is it good that we see it so we know that we can be more empathetic? And on the other hand, it's obviously addicting because that's what sells, like mayhem and arguing sells advertising because people are more drawn to negative than positive as people, unfortunately.
But we're so used to seeing bad stuff,
Yeah.
we don't know how to
Yeah.
weigh the two.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah, we do. We turn off the TV set.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
well, some of us know how, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
And
yeah.
know, you can only process so much that you actually feel like you have input into, or you can help, or whatever it is that you want to resolve from that, where individually each one of us can do more to relate to people, to let them know, gosh, I'd love to see
Right, our people, our community.
our town, our people, and be more open with our people instead of, and not that I'm not concerned about what's going on in the world, I am, but I can't focus on that in
Right.
my life because
yeah.
I can't really do anything. I can pray for those people,
Right.
I can pray for their leaders, but I can't really have any personal contact or influence to solve that problem. And yet people get so hung up in it that
Yeah.
it's no wonder we have these problems with depression and
Well,
and all of the mental problems that
the
people are
biggest
going
thing
through.
one of the biggest things we got going on in our world now is stress.
Right.
Stress is a killer.
It is.
You talk about how do you live older age, you get rid of stress. And I can't tell you how to do it, but without knowing you better,
Did you feel stress in your life?
never.
Did you feel stress in your life?
I did more than he did because I grew up in a whole different society of much more competition, much more lack of personal contact with family. I didn't come from a big family. I have an older sister, but I was pretty much raised as a single child. Life was very different in my growing up years. I grew up in Sequim, which was an agricultural community then. It's now become a tourist community,
Sun
just
Belt.
like we have.
Yeah.
But, in that day and age, they had dairy farmers there. They had lots of irritable crops there. So I kind of grew up in a similar environment, but I didn't grow up in what I would call a more depressed area like this area was at that point in time in life. So I had a whole different perspective. It was a huge change for me when we moved from Seattle to Manson, and I knew we were moving to a small town. I didn't know I was moving to the end of the road. I mean, I
can
knew the
relate
end
to
of the
that.
road was
The
here.
end of the road.
Yeah, I can relate to
You can always
that.
swim across the lake.
And I
funny.
went from teaching in excellent, outstanding school districts in Seattle, in Bellevue and North Shore school districts. You can ask for any better school districts than that. And I handled about 150 to 200 kids a day
Wow.
through my programs that I taught. Moved over here, 150 kids, K through 12, in this whole school district, and I thought I was coming to the panacea of the world. Whole different thing,
Well, it's-
whole different, not necessarily bad different. Expectations of parents were different. Expectations of kids were different. It was a very difficult transition, but we
Yes.
made it. By the
Yeah.
grace of God, we made it.
But you came close to not making it.
But anyway, put that aside,
funny.
comparing those two worlds, I would have given anything to have grown up here in this society that he lived in at the time that he grew up. I was in a much more competitive society,
Big
which
city.
caused a lot of stress, getting back to your original question.
Yes.
Because you were always competing for everything, and you were competing with a lot of other kids.
And you both have PE, you have physical education degrees,
Yeah.
and that's what you
Yep.
taught in school. And
Yep.
could you
Well-
ever fathom that, like, a lot of schools don't have physical education programs anymore?
That's
Yes.
Yeah, for
we,
sure.
We
That's
had
a question. Would you guys be teachers today? Would you guys want to be teachers today?
absolutely not, unless I got to carry a gun.
And tell the government what they can tell you.
I would love
But-
to teach today, not in the public school system. I would love to teach in a
That's a great
in a
point.
private school system.
We would love you at North Shore Christian.
You know,
You should come down.
Yeah.
I love teaching. It was
We
hard.
need substitutes all the time.
Yeah.
We have none.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I'm,
a great.
I'm old.
That's okay.
That's good. That's
But, you know,
you're only as old as you feel, like what
There,
my grandma used to say.
it's really different today, and I would not enjoy being part of the public school system, but I would enjoy, because I miss that relationship with kids. You know, to
Absolutely.
me and to Earl both,
Mm-hmm.
teaching was about kids.
Yep.
And you
We
had
didn't
to-
teach because we got rich.
Yeah.
We taught because we loved
You
it.
love
Yeah,
kids.
and we loved kids, and we
Mm-hmm.
loved them learning. We taught a lot more things than physical education during our careers.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
You know, and
Right.
in every one of those things, you have the ability to have great one-on-one relationships with kids in your classroom as you become their friend and their kind of their counselor, I guess would be a better word
And
for
sometimes
that.
they're mom and dad.
And sometimes they're mom and dad. You don't try to replace mom and dad.
Yeah.
But you mentor
Yes, a better word. You become a mentor for them, and
someone they can look up to, come to for
And somebody they'll
advice.
talk to.
Yep.
They may not talk to mom and dad for many reasons.
Sure.
But they'll come and talk to you.
we have
Yeah, it's a.
friends now who are actually students of Earl's. The first year he taught in Cleellum.
They're now 83 years old.
We just went to an 83-year-old birthday
They come-
party.
they still
of
come
one
back.
of his
Gosh.
students.
Well, you touched a lot of people
Oh my gosh.
in your life.
And those are real rewards.
Those
of
are the rewards
teaching.
of teaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
My first quarterback, my first year of coaching, he comes every summer to see me.
Wow. You had a massive impact on a lot
It
of
had
people.
some kind of impact.
yeah.
Well, there were several you know you had impact because kids had problems, same things then as they have now. But yeah, it's altogether different.
I was trying to explain.
I'd be in jail if I were teaching now.
Yeah, I was just laughing. I was
I think a lot of people say that.
Yeah, I was trying to explain, like, when in PE class in elementary school, right? So we dodgeball or sulcum, right? Like, the teachers were like, they didn't care that we were fourth graders, like, and these are little round balls, and they would
And
like
they
knock you over, like. And I had Mike Early. He's now moved on. He was a good athlete as a PE teacher. That guy could throw the ball. And,
I mean,
and,
I tried to get out in that game
I know,
early.
and a lot of people like it was a dangerous game, but there was something about that mindset of competitiveness. Granted, there's some downside. You get nose broke, you get beat up a
Yeah.
little bit,
That's a
and it's
tough
probably
game.
not fair to every kid. There probably should have been a little
No, but you
different now. You can't do that now for sure.
But you're talking about dodgeball.
Yeah.
You learn quick when you get into you learn very little about teaching when you're going to college, incidentally.
You learn very little about anything, I think,
Or
when
anything
you're in
else, yeah.
college. Yeah.
Beer drinking.
You
Little
learn
bit of
very
that.
quickly because we got put in different places, different classes, teaching different things we knew nothing about. We finally learned you're not teaching English, you're teaching kids.
Mm.
So
That's a great
I could go in any class and take them over for a week. Because I didn't care what the course was. It didn't matter. I was teaching those kids
Life skills.
stuff.
Yeah.
How to live life
Yep.
and survive.
And
life.
they were you know why I could do it? They were so interested in what we were talking about, they didn't care what it was an English class. They were right on the edge of their seats.
That's a great point. There's so much what I call the page 32 mentality, where I'm going to teach you whatever that book, whatever they told me to do, that's what I'm going to teach, rather than what you just said, which
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
authentic version of, okay, I'm going to evaluate, I'm
Yeah.
going to do my best to help you with life.
Well, you know, of course, you've been an athlete enough to know that your coach is extremely important,
Yeah.
and you don't break that trust as a coach. I
No,
mean,
you learn a lot in sports.
you
About life.
you
You
learn a
can.
lot in
Yeah.
sports, not just how to play football.
You know, Frankie and I went to college at Wenatchee. We had a guy come from California. It was kind of like Bobby Knight.
Yeah.
He was. We love him to this day, but we hated him at the time, right? Because he made us run like constantly. Frank and I thought we were pretty good athletes, you know. And we get down there. You said it earlier when you get to college about those football players.
Yeah.
That first day, I said, "I'm in shape."
Yeah.
And I was the captain of the team. Frank was the captain. I'm in shape.
And did you throw up?
Yeah, he ran us until realized we were not. We didn't know what in shape meant.
Yeah.
So we learned right away that life is different sometimes than that big fish, small pond stuff. And that was
Yeah.
still a
Yeah.
pretty small pond, but
Yeah.
a life
You know,
lesson, right?
I can't really process that you said you've never had stress.
Oh, I don't mean never. There
I
is-
mean, a moment, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, do you? I
Well, it's just like there's no
I
can't.
don't know anyone like that.
There's no can't in the brain. Like
Well,
perseverance.
You learn things going along through life, and one of them is this little prayer I used to say a lot. Lord, teach me to accept the things I cannot change. Give me the wisdom to change the the courage to
Courage.
change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So if there's something happens, I can't change it, and I know I can't change it, why should I worry about it and carry it around?
Just
I
like
don't
your
know
point, Judy.
why. Why do I?
Well,
Why do we? I don't know. That's the
It's
question.
human nature.
It
and
is
you got-
human nature.
You got to handle it. If you don't, you're going to have stress, and you're going to die young. You're going to end up. I don't know what stress will kill you. They'll call it some consumption or cancer or what do they want to call it?
You made a good point, Judy. You pray for the people that are going through hard times, and you pray for the leaders, but you're not going to really do a lot in North Korea right now. Like you're not going to do a lot in Afghanistan. You're going to
Exactly.
So if you consume that and what you focus on expands, it seems like that's a key. What you focus on,
Exactly.
expands. So you got to know when to shut the TV off,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and that
You
takes
do.
discipline because it's an addiction. That dopamine hit,
Yeah.
like I think the
Yeah.
average time is 4 or 5 hours a day for the average American on a screen.
Yeah.
And it's stuff you can't change.
Yeah.
Stuff you can't
You
change.
get one vote, and that's all you get to do.
And social media is much the same for
Yeah,
kids today.
for sure.
I think it creates anxiety for kids. I think it creates competitiveness that's out of the
It's
ballpark.
next level bullying.
It does.
And anger. It creates anger.
It creates anger. It creates frustration. I can't think of anything good that it creates other than maybe some communication with some kids that wouldn't communicate otherwise. Maybe. I'm not sure I even believe that, but I think social media is the biggest downfall of our growing young people today.
Here's something I see happen that didn't happen when I was a kid. I know it didn't happen when any of y'all were a kid. But we spent our time driving around, walking around, riding bikes around, trying to find other friends
Yep.
to do stuff
Yes.
with. And oftentimes we ran out of our time to do anything, just looking for people to do stuff with. Like that was the thing, we'd walk for hours looking for something to do, and that was the thing we were doing, right? We were hanging out, walking around
Right.
Together.
together.
Having conversation.
Now they're instantly, where are you? And then they go there, and then I see them in herds just staring at their phone.
Yeah.
At dinner, texting each other at the dinner table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, I guess I don't really know what the point is, but it just doesn't, I don't know, maybe I'm missing it. Doesn't seem as fun.
Well, you can tell by like what you're doing right now. You've always been leaders. Like you're a leader, and you're doing that. You know how many people that are 90 that are going to want to come do a podcast on a video because a kid asked them to.
You didn't tell us that's what this was going to be.
Well,
Yeah.
I did. That's what. Forgot the funny, Brent.
You know, before I forget it, because it just came in my head, and I wanted to pop this out to you.
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy Griffith.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's about 95.
Wow.
He's the only guy that I know that's older than me. There probably are others. I just know Jimmy's an old friend.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's what my grandpa said in his later years when all of his friends were dying, and he was kind of the last man standing too. My dad, he said, "Well, I don't really want to play golf. You know, all my friends are gone." My dad said, "We'll make new friends." I don't want to. Have you guys made new friends?
Oh, of course.
Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
golfing, you said you met a lot of people from everywhere.
Yeah.
We don't have any friends our age. They're all younger than we are, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's wonderful. Well, that's your attitude, and that's your leadership skills, and that's the
But
just being humble.
That's a really interesting question, because we have a lot of friends, and they're all 70.
Or 60s and 70s. And
55.
we also have friends who are more in your generation of people who we've had associations with their kids that are growing up or not completely grown
Yeah.
up yet. But I think for us, what has helped us stay younger is the multi-generational thing. I mean, we have 17 great grandkids
Wow.
now, and we are
Wow.
expecting
Great grandkids.
2 more, and we have a
Great-grandkids.
grandson engaged to a woman with 3 children.
Wow.
This year, our great-grandchildren are going to multiply to 5, and we already have 17. We have great relationships
22.
with those kids when we can keep them off their phones.
Yeah.
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 But, you know, we still have a good, close family relationship. And I think you have to have that multi-generational input in your life to still maintain, you know, good communication skills, still have fun together. We can't go as much as we used to. We can't do
Yeah.
as many things as we used to do because of physical problems, but they still come to us. And what more?
Well, visiting
what more,
doesn't take a whole lot.
No. And what more could you ask in your life is to be surrounded by a family of people who love you and come to visit you. And, you know, this year has been fantastic for us because we've had several reasons for celebration, and we've had the majority of our family home 3 times
Wow.
between Apple Blossom and our son-in-law's just retirement party. So we've had, you know, from May to October, we've had 3 huge family reunions. Exhausting,
Very busy.
fun, very busy.
Lot to be thankful for. That's awesome. Well, you know, guys, I just really wanted to tell you again, thank you for being a friend.
Well, we've enjoyed it.
Thank you for letting me trick you into coming to this
Yeah.
and not getting mad
Yeah,
at me.
most importantly.
And just everything about, I just am grateful for who you are and that I know you, and I just love you guys. And, hope you,
And can we still call you Rusty?
you can call me whatever you want.
Of course.
And
Well,
my-
I'm also feeling some gratitude too. You know, I've lived here for a long time, and I don't know you guys, but it is good to know you, and I'd like to be your friend.
Well,
Thank you.
just from the little visit we have had, I'd love to know you.
Great.
Yeah.
It's mutual.
Well, she's going to have a store right here. She's getting it open right now.
You're taking over this place?
Yes.
Oh, good.
you
And I'm
are.
calling it the store.
Oh, really?
And you know,
Loving memory of the store.
Oh, I was going to tell you. Do you know about the store?
Yes, I do.
She actually,
Martha gave me a little IOU taped to the post.
Good.
well, I thought it
Yep.
was beautiful. What Tara did is she said, "You think I should call Buddy Junior, of course, and ask him like some, you know, out of respect, can I call it the store?" And Buddy, and you did. And I think
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
very
Ah,
admirable.
That's a good thing for old people like us. We were fond of the store.
Yes, I have
The
great
boat, the
memories.
store, the tap, the
I
dog.
have great memories of the store. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure.
Remember the
he
butcher
was
shop
okay.
in the back that Buddy Senior and Buddy Junior?
Well,
yeah.
even more than that, I remember when it was the Chevron station.
Wow.
And which leads me to your dad. your dad and I got in big trouble.
Uh-oh.
You got to kind of look at Manson 70 years ago. He had your grandmother's car, which is relatively new. I had my old 41 Plymouth. Anyway, there was nobody in Main Street. It was probably late afternoon, early evening. So we'd right in front of what the store was the service station then.
Yeah.
We were drag racing up Main Street.
I was just going to say drag racing is coming to mind.
And boy, we get down there and one of us dropped the handkerchief and we pop the clutches. We go all the way up to here. Then we come and chugging back down through town, so proud of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Turn around, get lined up, do it again. Next time we came down, there was J.V. DeWalt, which you guys don't know.
No, I don't.
He owned the service station. Standing out in the middle of the street.
Stop it. Stop it.
We got a Riemann.
Mm-hmm.
But there was not a car in town. There was nobody in town except JV.
Yep.
So we had a drag race. That's how it used to be in Manson.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pure.
I can relate. Yep.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have more conversations about
Good.
my dad,
Good.
and I could do this with my dad forever, but so we'll talk again soon. Hopefully.
And if you're not recording, I'll tell you more things about your dad.
I hope my friends do the same for me someday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you both.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for inviting us.
We enjoyed it.
All right. So just remember, Small Towns Unscripted. You're the second person ever.
Episode 2.
Good.
Wow.
Good.
All right.
So where do we see this?
Well, we can.
So what are your plans here?
Yeah, what are our plans? The idea is to share it with as many people as we can in different places to get positivity, to kind of drown out some of the negativity, and to hopefully help people understand that people are just people, and you might know of something about them or of them, but that's maybe not who they really are, and this might give you a chance to know people better.
Everybody, not one, everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the goal. The goal is just to help share stories and help merge ideologies, because we are in a situation where there's a lot of people moving here, and there's kind of this tribalism that tends to happen naturally. And the definition of a local is kind of a funny question, you know, like I had people tell me, I've been here 5 years. How about you? And I'm like, 5 generations, but who's counting? Like, it doesn't have to be a contest.
Yes, it doesn't
No,
have to be
no, it's not a contest.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're going to stick to a true local,
A local.
there aren't many left.
No, there's not, and that's what's beautiful about today. And I think that to answer your question, Judy, I think we're going to use technology for good, not evil. We can do it email, we can do it social media, we can do it on a disc you can put in your computer. We can do it a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll have it streaming outside in a big screen one of these days. We'll open a movie theater back up.
The Times Square of Manson.
We'll have a drive-in theater. We'll just do our podcast.
Well, and as you interviewed others, I assume that's your plan.
Mm-hmm.
Old people.
Who should we interview that you know?
Yeah.
Who should we talk to?
I would be really interested in hearing what they have to say.
Yeah. Who should I call that you know?
Well, Jimmy Griffith, for one thing.
Yeah. Do you think he would come down if you asked him?
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I don't know.
See how I slipped you into the
Jimmy's still pretty active.
Yeah. Well, we can go to him too. That doesn't don't have to come up the stairs. We can take this.
Well, you could
to him.
You could do this any place.
Yeah, we can do it with him. But that's what we want to do. I wish we had started this 10 years ago. I would love to have my dad sitting right there and my mom.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the motivations for me is like recording. Like I look for phones trying to find his voice.
Yeah.
As you know, we were very, very close, and a lot of people have lost people in life. That's just part of life. And I feel very blessed to have had him as a dad.
And you need to, because you and your dad were unique among your peers.
Thank you.
Do you remember anybody that was your peer that had a father relationship like you two did? I don't know of anybody.
No, it'd be kind of judgmental for me to say that I did or didn't, but I think that I was pretty damn lucky.
Yeah, you certainly were.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky, and I think anybody, I just, has big shoes to fill, so all you can do is do your best and forget the rest, I guess. Just keep trying to get better, because I can never be him. He was a saint.
Yeah.
You know, tough saint, but a saint.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. He was tough.
Yeah, well, we were close. We were very, very close. And what people may not know about us in business is we made every decision together. Not all of them worked out, but we made every one together. There was no me versus him or him versus me. It was always together.
The best thing you can do is just do the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do any better than the best you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some, and we were lucky. We had some great times.
Yeah.
You know, and my mom too. You know, she was always there in the rodeo, always there at the football game. My dad videotaped every game I played. He was the first guy that had a VHS camera, and he was sitting there at practice.
That's right. And I was with him to several of them.
Yeah, you were.
Certainly not all of them, but to several.
You were there a lot. And those are great times.
Yes, they were. And you, for some reason or other, amplified what your dad wasn't, because things were different.
Mm-hmm.
Football was better. Nobody played as poorly as I did, and I thought I was doing well for the time. But you advanced it a whole bunch.
Well, you know, he told me once about our family name. He wasn't, I don't know before that, and it's hard, but he said, you know, my goal is to make the McClellan name just a little better. And I don't know if I helped or hurt it, but, you know, my son is a combination of a lot of my mom, my dad, his mom, me, and my son. You know, went to the Marine Corps for 5 years, and he's now doing excavation with us. He's operating equipment. He's working with Todd Corrigan, and he's back, and he just got engaged. And so he spent a lot of time.
Which son you talking about?
Mason.
Oh, yeah.
I just have one son and one daughter, Taylor and Mason.
I thought you just had one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he spent a lot of time with my dad. My dad.
Did he?
When he.
Well, I know your dad talked about him a lot.
Yeah, and when he'd go to work with my dad, he'd be like, "Oh my God, like this 12-hour days. Are we gonna get a glass of water?" My dad goes, "I can't drink water. I go to the bathroom too much. I don't get enough work done."
Yeah.
Get back to work, kid. So I go, he's a good trainer for the Marine Corps.
And that's the way it was when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
You worked.
Yeah, but he loved
all day
it.
long.
It was all love, you know, and you know, that tough love is a lost art.
Yeah.
But I'm just again. You and I could talk about my dad all day. So
Yeah, we could, and that's for certain.
And we're probably over our hour.
no, there's no time. We can sit here till midnight if you want, but I just don't. Yeah, I'm real good at talking about my parents. So.
Yeah, well, they were great people. So you said you want to improve the McClellan name. I just want to warn you that for some people you will improve it. Some people are going to go the other way.
Yeah, for sure.
So don't
For
try. You must not start thinking you're going to please everybody. You must know that by now.
I've had to learn that lesson.
Okay.
I just try to be me and
Yep.
try to learn from the mistakes you make in life and try to teach the best you can.
If you get knocked down, you get up.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't stay there.
Well, that's a good place to end that.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was very nice.
Thank you so much.